The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it's Friday.
Is it really already?
It's the end of the week. A rather quiet week, actually.
Yeah, you know, it's politically, it's been a very quiet week, which I've been very surprised at.
Yeah,
but,
except for the announcement of the retirement of the police chief. There really hasn't been a lot going on, so now it will be very interesting to watch the political machinations that go on to appoint the next one. Because, as we all know, they're contract chiefs. And when contract chiefs are made, they're made politically. There's no longer a civil service test like there is in the fire department. You know, they tried that with contract chiefs, and they saw what they got, Coogan. And that was immediately, but it's my opinion that all department heads should be civil service. There should be a competitive examination process. There should have qualifications, which there are in civil service. And contrary to what the politicians tell you, that's why they like contract department heads, because if they don't do what they're told, they can get rid of them, and they lose their jobs, and they only appoint people who they can control. Whereas civil service, they continue to say, well, you can't get rid of them to civil service. Horse manure. Yeah. There were numerous people terminated during my tenure through the civil service process. There is actually an entire section of civil service. The civil service, if you go to the civil service section, it's the civil service law and mass general laws for civil service. They are sections 41 through 45. And it'll tell you, it defines a process for termination and for discipline. So now again, every time we go through this process, it irritates me, because especially when it comes to public safety, because public safety is an issue where the chief should have at least a civil service protection where he can't be fired for doing the right thing. Which,
yeah, I agree. I agree.
Because if the manpower is too low, and the contract chief will try to justify it rather than go out and say the manpower is too low. It happened in Boston. Leo Stapleton was fire commissioner. They cut the Boston Fire Department. He called a press conference, and so what did they do? They changed the rules so the politicians could control the Boston Fire Department. At one time, you had to have 10 years as a chief officer in order to be appointed fire commissioner in Boston. Now they have a retired naval officer who's a political hack as the fire chief. So, this is what politicians do. If they can't control it, they change it.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because as we know, a member of the Fall River Department of Public Health was terminated because she made a comment in regards to the chief of staff for the administration. No progressive disciplinary plan, nothing, just you're fired, get out of here after 20 years, plus or minus. This is what we have. You don't do the job, you don't get it. I spoke with a department head within the city, and I was told by this department head that every time I try to do something right, or every time I try to do something that the people want, I am told by the administration not to. There's more politics in this than anything else. And I think that's why for a long time we saw people like Ken Pacheco constantly throw himself on a sword. But that is, all in all, poor government. It's just piss poor government. Before I go on too much further, I want to apologize to our viewers who watch us on YouTube Live. Because of Comcast outages last Wednesday, this past Wednesday, the show was not broadcast in its entirety, or it was broadcast sporadically. We have corrected that file online. It is available online. That file is 16-118. And right now I'm hoping we're broadcasting properly, but you never know with Comcast. But getting back to this, I find it very amazing that the people in the city don't care. So much so that, as you know, Fall River was the first city to run and effectively manage a recall, to the point that we ousted a mayor. Well, guess what? They want to do the same thing in Providence now. Providence wants to oust a Ward 3 city councilor because, number one, he's a thief, allegedly. He allegedly embezzled money from a child softball league or something. I mean, you got to steal from the children, you know, might as well make it good. Allegedly.
Allegedly.
But this is what happens. Now, Fall River, I don't know how people just get so enticed to do it, but they made it happen. And now they're all saying, because they are, you know, kneeling at the feet of their guy, and they're worshiping the ground he walks on, and, you know, praying for a piece of feces to, you know, carry home as a trophy, they don't want to talk about holding them accountable. They don't want to hold their city council accountable. This is why we have the government we have. And we spoke briefly about a piece that was on Channel 10, and I contacted Channel 10 and got the piece. And I'm only going to air a piece of that where, as you said, Chip, here's where a politician does what the people want, even though he doesn't agree with it.
I want to make it, before you run it, I want to just say to everybody out there, especially our city councilors, and if you know a city councilor who hasn't watched this piece, please tell them to do so, and I think we'll probably post it on our you know, on Spindle City Straight Talk page, so everybody can see this, because this is what they're supposed to do. And the fact is, we've said it time and time and time again. And what you were saying, CJ, about these people that are drinking the Kool-Aid and believe. Well, the problem is that's always a segment. Flanagan had his minions, and some of them are just political hacks that whoever's there they attach themselves to, and we know who they are. The ones that remain in their appointed commissioners, that, you know, and they go from one politician to another. They're political hacks that are just, they're like barnacles. They just attach themselves to whoever's in office, and, you know, they'll fight to keep their man in office. If he doesn't get elected, well, they attach him to the next guy. And then you always have a new segment of people who are friendly with this guy. And before we run this, I had to say this, because I keep saying, I don't care if you're friendly with the person. If my friend is a terrible mechanic, I don't bring my car to him. And if he's doing something wrong, it's still wrong. And politicians are here to do the business of the city, and they're here to represent the people. And this is the problem. We see money being spent all the time on pay raises and not maintenance, and then we have to bond and we go. But here it comes. Listen, pay attention to what this guy says and what this legislature did.
Both chambers of the legislature unanimously voted earlier to send the question to voters. That includes House Republican leader Brian Newberry, even though he opposes it.
I knew my constituents wanted the chance to see it on the ballot. I personally, as a private citizen, would be voting against in the ballot box. I think it's a bad idea.
Newberry thinks the wording of the proposal is too broad, and lawmakers could face complaints for what they say, not just votes or conflicts.
I think it's window dressing. I don't think it's going to solve the ethical problems in the state. If you want better politicians and better ethics in state government, I think people need to elect better people to the state government.
But Newberry...
Wow. Wow. That was amazing. If you want better politicians, like, I understand his opposition, but I respect the man. He opposes it because politicians don't want oversight.
That's right.
They don't want anybody watching them. He thinks it's a little too broad. But, you know, but he basically said, what did he say? He said, my constituents wanted to basically have a voice in this process, and although I personally oppose it, I'm going to vote against it personally. But I'm going to do what I was elected to do, let the people speak. And when the people speak, that's what we'll do what the people want. Wow, amazing, absolutely amazing. They abided by the Constitution.
Hey, you know, I guess not everybody's dimwits.
It's mind-boggling. What's happening to Rhode Island? Rhode Island used to be the worst state in the world for politics and all kinds of shenanigans. And now, what do? They kick a Lawser. You know, they boot him right in the you-know-wheres and shoot down his streetscapes and his bonding for stuff that should be in it, and with the ridiculous reason that we're too deep in debt.
But here's the funny thing. Remember, here's the funny thing. It was 5 city councilors, 5 out of 13, who control the finance committee. That's kind of like the Ways and Means committee, okay, who said, no, this is not even going to go to a full vote of the council. It died there. And in our council, they have all 9 as full members of the city finance committee, and 5 of them moved it forward, and 5 of them approved it. Why? This is why. This is why we have such a problem in Fall River. That's why, right there. That is it. We have clowncillers. We have people who don't know what they're doing, people who sell their votes. Pam Laliberte-Lebeau, you accepted a bribe. Any way you want to look at it, it's a bribe. Steve Camara, you're in this Streetscapes program. I know you didn't vote on it, but guess what? You gave the mayor his budget anyhow. Okay? Joe Camara, you keep saying my brother didn't get a job because of me. Well, it looks like it did. And guess what? It's not the impropriety. It's the appearance of the impropriety. Okay, Steve Long, you've never, ever, ever voted against anything any administration's ever done because you are the poster child for political hackery. There's nothing you have never done that was not politically motivated by you or any member of your family. Like it or not, that's the truth. And until you realize, and you the voter, and see, here's the problem here. You the voter need to understand. You the voter need to hold these people accountable. Because you let them get away with this bull, this fecal mess, this bovine excrement, you allow them to do this. It's your fault. You heard this politician who turned around and said, my constituents wanted it. Therefore, I voted to put it in front of the ballot. He did what the people wanted. But did you hear the statement that he closed with? If you want good government, you have to elect good government. Well, that's right. And guess what? So far, Fall River hasn't elected a good government. I don't know in how many years. In how many years? We give away millions of dollars to political friends, which is what Streetscapes is going to do. Because, number one, the only projects currently proposed is Purchase Street. Where does the mayor live? The corner of Purchase Bank. Purchase and Bank. Owned by his political hack, who he appointed to the city pier, who serves on the mayor's financial advisory team, who serves for the mayor all the time. So how is spending $1.some-odd million for that project alone okay? Now remember, under the ordinance, under the law, they approved this bonding for $15-some-odd million, which is going to leave us with less than which is going to leave us with a little more than $4 million available for a bond. They don't have to bond that money for 4 years. So come July 1, when the administration wants to bond another $20 million for a bunch of people who he owes politically, he's going to do that and rack up your tax bill. You know, they said that this isn't going to affect taxes, this isn't going to do anything. Well, let me tell you something, Cliff Ponte, it did. Let me tell you something, Mr. Mayor, it did. Let me tell you something, Mr. Long, it did. Why? You just approved fee increases. The water bill increased. The sewer bill increased. Service charges increased.
All the TIFs.
All the TIFs. Those are all, you know, they say, oh no, that's not money. We didn't have that money, so it's not costing us anything. No, it's calculated into the revenue stream. So again, you paid for that TIF. for potential jobs, not necessarily for Fall River. Why don't you people pull your heads out of your backside? Start looking at life in a real point of view, in a reality sense.
Well,
and when you do that, then when you can make your decisions informed, not with propaganda, but with you researching it, informed, then maybe we'll have a better government.
well, you know, CJ, I think one of the major problems we have is that it's perception of the council. See, the council, because there are 9 members of it, they kind of look at it as as a popularity contest. I'll elect one of my buddies because I like them, and if I need a street light or if I need something from City Hall, I can cut through the red tape by calling my buddy, and it's okay. He's only one counselor, and the rest of the counselors can take up the slack, even though I know he's really not capable. Well, that's not true, because we end up with most of them, the majority of them, not being competent, like that individual said in Rhode Island. The only way you fix this is elect better people. And the way you elect it is by watching what they do. They are an arm of government. They are the most important one. They're the ones that approve all the money and the taxes and the fees. You don't pay attention. You know, for the last decade, taxes have continued to escalate, fees have continued to escalate, and yet none of the equipment's been maintained, none of the buildings have been maintained, nothing that we needed was bought in all those budgets. So why did it increase so much? Pay raises.
Do-nothing jobs.
Do-nothing jobs, pay raises, little projects for their friends, like rapid paving of Duval Street when a politically connected guy bought the property. You know, it went right to the top of the pile. Screw your street. I don't care if it's been 30 years since it saw a paving. We're going to repave Duval Street for my buddy. We're going to put a facade on my friend's business who didn't pay his taxes or fees before I became mayor, and now mysteriously they have been paid, and now he's looking for EPA money and CPA money, I'm sorry, and we're going to get public money paying for private businesses to be spruced up. To me, that's unconscionable. There should be no.
But then again, that's what this administration does. If it wasn't for the fact that I did some research into a grant for $250,000 that he applied for from the state, he would have gotten it. But I made sure that I did my due diligence, like every voter should do, and I presented that information to that agency and said, now you know what you approved. Because that application was walked in. It says right on the minutes, walked in by Kenny Fiola and then the CEO of that company, which was owned by the administration.
You're right, CJ, but the thing is, you know, people always look at the city council and go, oh, you know, I got 9 votes. I can vote for 5 people I think can do the job, and 4 people who, you know, they're friends of mine, and you know, they groom my dog, or they you know, and you know, that's not. I mean, those those councilors on the finance committee in Providence deserve a tremendous amount of praise and recognition, because you know something, I've talked to people that said Elorza had the votes if it went to the full council.
Right.
They were going to spend that money. They were going to spend that money that they can't afford to spend, but those people had enough courage to stop it from going to the full council, because they knew they were going to do exactly what they did in Fall River, not put it on the ballot, run the bills up in Providence again, and Providence is in big trouble. But that takes courage. But you got to realize that, you know, this is supposed to be a government, and it's supposed to be for the people. It's not supposed to be an endless pit to drain every working person. Just look at the presidential. Look at the debate, the last debate. It was horrifying. It was horrifying. We have 2 candidates that are not qualified to be president of the United States. Yet both parties, well, not both parties, most of the people in the Republican Party, because they consider him an outsider, are throwing Trump under the bus. Okay, maybe justifiably in your opinion, maybe unjustifiably. But you look at the other side. You look at Hillary Clinton. She didn't answer the question about the Clinton Foundation. She never answered if she was going to pay the money back that she took for access. All the stuff that was leaked shows they leaked emails where Clinton's campaign called Bernie Sanders doofus. They called him doofus. They said at the beginning of the political cycle, regardless, he was not going to win the nomination. Now, this is Fall River to the extreme. The Democratic Party has put politics above the will of the people and the good of the people. If Bernie Sanders could not win, and he did not win, it has been proved they did everything in the world to fix it, undermine it. We now have another candidate who's been shown as being duplicitous, who's shown she's untrustworthy, who's shown that she plays both sides. She made $250,000 for a speech where she said something. But look, I'm not saying that Trump's any better. I'm saying that neither of them. How did we get to this point, at this point in the history of our nation? You know how we got there? Because the voters are not doing their job. They're not doing what the representative in Providence said, is electing good people. We've allowed groups, radical right, radical left, to control political parties. We've put politics ahead of anything. We had people in the Democratic Party saying, we don't care what happens. If Bernie Sanders wins by 1 million votes, when we go to the convention, he's not going to get the nomination. Is that America? Is this a political party that understands what America's about? And we do the same thing in here in Fall River. So what's the moral to this story? The moral to this story is, if this country is going down a toilet, it's our fault, the voters. If we cannot educate ourselves enough to pick the people who will do the job for the good of this nation, who will bring this nation together and not divide it, and try to take all the subgroups and pit them against the other. As Teddy Roosevelt said, there's no such thing as a hyphenated American with anything after the hyphen. And this country is supposed to be united. United we stand, divided we fall. The first rule in conquering someone is divide and conquer. And that's what they've done in this nation. And look at the result. Look at the result. An election where when I go to the ballot box, I may leave the presidential boxes empty. I mean, this is the best that our political process could do. And if that's the case, we have to change the process and the people who run these parties, because it is horrifying that one of these people is going to be the President of the United States. The two most unpopular people in the history of this nation. It's, you know, and then you look at Fall River, and we're just a microcosm of the same problem. But what is the problem? The problem is us. The problem are the voters. Pick people who'll do the damn job. The way you pick an auto mechanic, the way you pick a heating service, the way you pick anything else in life. Pick the most important thing in your life, the thing that has the greatest effect on you, the government. Pick the best people because they do the job, not because you like the way they comb their hair, not because you like the way they were marketed, but because they understand the process, like that representative. I I am not in favor of it personally. I will vote against it, but my constituency wanted this on the ballot because they want to speak, and that's who I represent. That's how simple it can be.
Well, you know, you're right, but again, the problem is that it's not just for our country; it's for our city. And in our city, and I jokingly said this to somebody on the phone yesterday. I said, "Hey, you want to get elected? Go out to the Chinese noodle factory, buy 10 bags, and you're all set." You know, I mean, but they might start arresting you for trafficking chow mein gravy. But you know, this is our problem. This is our problem. We do not have a city council that represents the people. They represent their own self-interest. As a matter of fact, one of them even said, "I will not govern by referendum." Yeah, well, you don't govern at all.
You govern okay for yourself, self-interest. Yeah. When people begin to make deals, and like you said, the bottom line is, you're for sale.
That's right.
You're for sale, and no counselor, nobody in any political office who's elected to represent the people should be voting on an issue because they got something. Because guess what? This is how we ended up with the pharmaceutical issues, because they all got bought off by the pharmaceutical companies. And this is how we end up with all the crap getting shoved down our throat, because big money, big business, friends cost you and I money.
And I want to make this clear. And I'm going to name them. Sean Kadim, Joe Camara, Steve Camara, while he always says he's, doesn't want to raise taxes, doesn't want to raise fees, that's a little bit of self-interest, and that's what the people want to hear. Pamela Laliberte-Lebeau, Steve Long, Cliff Pont. Taxes are good. Bonding is good. Bonding equals increased taxes. Any way you look at it, they say, "Oh no, because we're getting rid of that over here. We're paying that off." Yeah, well, I paid off my Visa card, so now I've got $2,500 more.
Well, no,
I'm going to spend it.
That's a great rationale, CJ.
Yeah.
You max out a card. You go and find a service to tell you how to pay your debt down, and as soon as you pay your debt down, you max them all out again.
Exactly.
That's intelligent strategy. That's great.
Yeah, and then they justify saying, "Well, government isn't the way you do it in real life."
Oh, yes, it is.
It's not the way you do it in business. The way you do it in government is not like business. It's not like personal finances. Yes, it is. Money is money. And if the money isn't there to pay your bills, you can't bond. Now, it's amazing that they turn and say, "Oh, well, we can't bond to pay salaries."
Well, the only difference is, they're right. Government and private and homes are different, because we can't go to our neighbor and tax them when we overspend. That's the only difference. The reason that they do what they do, it's not the right thing to do, because it's not the right thing to do for the people. You have to spend money. I have to spend money. If you need a roof, you got to find the money to put a roof on.
Right.
If you need, when you buy a house, you need a mortgage. That's a bond in form. It's just semantics. But the difference is we can't just spend and continue to spend, because if I max out all my credit cards and I've got all kinds of bills, and I go to the bank and they look at my credit rate and they go, "Horse, you're not getting any. We're not going to give you a house.
Right.
You can't afford. We're not going to give you a mortgage." But what does the city do? They run to the state and say, "Oh, underwrite our bonds," and the bond companies don't care, because as long as you pay the bond, they'll continue to give you bonds. You never hit a debt ceiling. It's like the national debt. They say we don't deficit spend, but we do in the city.
Every day, yeah.
And the fact is, the reason that they give these bonds out is because they know who pays, the taxpayer.
Well, and remember,
stay angry.
And always remember, our bills are paid for by whom? By the state, not us.
Us.
Yep. Thank you very much. You have a great weekend.